Well, good evening. Here we are, our weekly live Facebook. I've been relegated outside today. I'm outside in the studio. I've got the dog with me, so if you hear a dog in the background, that's Lucy. She's just come up to me to see what's going on. So, as you noticed that the lockdown haircut's a lot shorter this week. Do it yourself lockdown haircut. Got a lot shorter now, so that was okay. Sort of that's looking a bit better now, looking a bit tidier. So our beer for today, a little bit of a special one we've got today. We've got what beer, it's called the Transit of Venus. Now, a few things different this time, and I will just show you. The first thing we're going to do different, I'll just show you the pump if I can. So there it is. It's not a bottle beer. We haven't got this in any bottles at all. We just did it in draft. Special beer. Sorry, that's back to front. A bit of a pain that being back to front, but Transit of Venus, you can see it was a collaborative brew between ourselves and East London Brewery. Okay, and it's a very different beer from anything else we have made. So it's not in bottles, we just in draft, and of course, at the moment we're selling a lot in polypin. So if you look, we've got a polypin there, just so you can see what a polypin is. It's a bag in a box, it's similar to a wine box. And if you have a look at the front there, you can see that brilliantly. But there you go. There you go, it's got a little tap on there, the same as a wine box. We do them in 5, 9, 18, even 35 pints. So this one's a little 5-pinter. The key thing with these is when you get them, you let them settle overnight because they've got the yeast in there. It's proper real ale in there. The yeast settles out overnight, and then you draw a little bit off from the tap to clear the yeast out of the tap, and then you should get nice clear beer. Now with this beer, it's an unfined beer, so you might get a little bit haziness to it. So let's just move this back over here. See if I can get that in position and see if I can pour this whilst keeping the camera in place. Alright, so let's just see if I can get that. Right, okay, so last under there, so what you do is squeeze the tap like you would a wine box, and out comes the beer. Here it comes, and I'm going to serve yourself a generous pint. The thing is, you can keep these, serve how much you like in these, and keep them coming back to them. Once you've started them, it's best to drink them within about 7 days and keep them as cool as you can. They normally have a shelf life about a month on them. So there is the Transit of Venus. Now I say it's unfined, which does mean sometimes it can have a little bit of haziness to it, but in this case it's actually come out nice and clear, which is excellent. Okay, so glass that you've got in there. This one is from, I'll turn it around so you can see, Epinonga Real Ale Festival, the Epinonga Railway Beer Festival 2016, that one. Now that's becoming now one of my favourite beer festivals. They have a beer festival up at the Epinonga Railway. Sadly, as with many beer festivals, not taking place this year, which is really sad. But they have a festival, the main tent of the festival is at North Weald Station, and they also have some bars on the train. So it features normally, the beers that predominate are East London and Essex beers, and we've always had a few of our beers there. And you can see this particular glass, it's got the Billericay Brewing name on there, it's got our partners Brentwood Brewery on there, and a couple of East London breweries there. Unfortunately, there's no East London brewery itself there, but one from Hackney and Redemption are in Tottenham. So, yeah, so there's our beer, okay? Say it's for an unfined beer, nice and clear, but if you do get polypin of this and it has a little bit of haze, doesn't matter, that's perfectly normal for an unfined beer. So, I need to have a little sip of that. Now, with the Transit of Venus, okay, so collaborative beer between us and East London Brewery. Now, why would we do a collaboration with East London Brewery? Now, a lot of you know our current brewer, Rick, who does fantastic work of brewing loads of our beers. And when Rick joined us, at the same time, Rob, who was one of our previous brewers, was moving on. Now, Rob joined us a few years ago and really learned his trade of brewing, and then took the next step in his career just over a year ago and joined East London Brewery, obviously a big brewery than us, so it gave him a great opportunity to do full-time brewing there. But we kept in contact with Rob, and he was a great brewer for us. It was the thing with Rob, He was great for cleanliness of the brewery. He always used to apologise that he was so obsessive about his cleanliness, but there's no reason to apologise, because that's what you need to be a really great brewer, is you have to be obsessive about the cleaning. So anyway, so we kept in contact with him, and we invited him back to do a collaborative brew, both Rob and Rick together. And as it was going to be their brew, I gave them license to actually say, yeah, come up with your own brew, you can choose. Now, why they chose a New Zealand Pale Ale. Now, this what is, it's a New Zealand Pale Ale, 4.9%. So you can see it's a Pale Ale there. And as I asked them to come up with the recipe themselves. And they went to town. They really come up with something very different from anything that we've done before. So New Zealand Pale, so as its name suggests, it's got a couple of New Zealand hops in there. Waimea and Pacific Jade. So that's very different hops to British hops, and they're different in their way from American hops as well. So we'd never used New Zealand hops before, so it's something very different. Something very different we'd use, and they've used tons of those New Zealand hops in there. So it's got an amazing bitterness, far more bitter than anything that we've ever done before, and a crazy fruity aroma. Yeah, really crazy fruity aroma. It's for your traditional beer lovers. Not all of them like it, but I think it's fantastic. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's got, wow, what a punch that packs of the bitterness there. Okay, so they chose New Zealand Pale Ale because they both had connections with New Zealand. Rick's son at the time was living out in New Zealand. Rob spent a lot of time living out in New Zealand. Both love New Zealand. Love the place there. Sadly, I've never been there. I think a lot of people like to be there at the moment. They've done a very good job with the coronavirus there. They're just about to release their lockdown. They had 21 people died. So yeah, a lot of people probably prefer that we're out in New Zealand at the moment. But anyway, that's where they want to do a New Zealand Pale Ale. And I say, I let them do what they want with the recipe. It's very different from what anything they've done before. New Zealand hops, grain bill, as well as barley. They use wheat and they use oats, so it's got quite a good mouthfeel to it as well. And they use a totally different yeast as well, a US type style yeast as well. So it makes something very different. And of course, the key difference to this is it's unfined. Now, those who don't know, most draft beer has finings added to it. Well, there's a very barky dog in the background. I'm just going to shut the door so we don't hear quite the dog bark in the background. Excuse me. Now, I'm back. She'll probably come and start rocking at the door in a moment, but yes, she's being ignored a bit, so yeah. Anyway, so normally beer has finings added to it which help it to clear quickly in the pub cellar. Now that finings is known as isinglass, which strange material. It comes from the swim bladder of fish. So a very unusual thing that you add to beer, but it actually does help all the yeast in the beer to clump together and drops really quick. You get a very star bright pint, which the landlords of pubs like because they can serve that beer quickly. People are used to beer being clear, being good beer, but some people say, well, actually, by clearing the beer, you're taking out a lot of the flavour out of it by doing that. And also the other thing as well, being a fish product, there are people like vegans who will not drink that. So unfined beer is becoming more and more popular, and you get great flavours out of it. There's times when it will clear like that. That has been settling for about 3 days probably, so that's why that's settled and come out nice and clear. Sometimes if you see it with a normal time, like normally a polypin, you leave it settle overnight and be lovely and clear. If you leave that settle overnight, it probably have a bit more of a haze, but it gives the great flavours. And if you're a vegan, you can still drink the draft beer. Most of our other draft beers we do use finings in, but all our bottled beers are unfined, so you can actually, if you are vegan, you can drink our bottled beers no problem. So there, and so they've got that real bitterness there, and just an amazing funky fruity aroma there, but something very different. We've not got a lot more of this left, so if you do want a polypin of this, get your orders in quickly. So it's 5, 9, 18 pints. If you do want that, one of those, get your orders in very quickly. It's the last knock into this that are out there. But it's just wanted to show this one with something a very different beer, and really want to pay tribute to Rick and Rob for the first beer, their recipe, and coming up with such a fantastic recipe for that. Okay, so that tells you a little bit about the beer itself. Why the Transit of Venus, I might say. So, homeschoolers, we're going to get a bit of science, a bit of geography, a bit of history here. The Transit of Venus. Now, for those of you not aware, the Transit of Venus, it's a little bit like a solar eclipse, but where a solar eclipse involves the moon passing in front of the sun and blocking out all the light from the sun. And the Transit of Venus, it's just the planet of Venus travelling in front of the sun. And obviously, because Venus is tiny, when what we can see is a tiny dot in the sky. And actually, if you go out at night at the moment and you look at in the western sky, Venus is very bright at the moment. So, but you'll see it's very small compared to the size of the sun. So, when what actually happens is that the Venus, if it travels between the Earth and the sun, you get this little dot going across the sun. Now, it very rarely happens, the transit of Venus. Now, actually, strange, it happens. When it does happen once, it'll happen 8 years later. They always go in pairs, the transit of Venus. And then the next one won't happen for 105 years or 121 years. So the last one that happened was in 2004 and 2012, the last pair of them, so quite recently. And actually, I do remember the 2004 one. I was a primary school teacher at the time in Hyonga. And being out in the playground at break time, and I was lucky enough I still kept my eclipse viewer from the 1999 eclipse, and I could show you, because obviously you can't look at the sun to see it happening directly, you'd burn your eyes. But if you get something like an eclipse viewer, you can then look at the sun, and yeah, it was amazing. You could see this little dot travelling across the sun. So that's how the transit of Venus. Now, previous transits of Venus happened in the past. Now, the one that was first studied was the pair that were in 1761, 1769, the one that was 1769. Now, that one was studied by Captain Cook. Now, Captain Cook, on his first round-the-world voyage, he travelled to Tahiti to go and observe that transit of Venus on the way to New Zealand. So he went to Tahiti first of all, and then he travelled to New Zealand afterwards, hence the New Zealand Pale Ale. So that's where the transit of Venus comes from. It's the planet of Venus travelling between the Earth and the Sun. So you see this tiny little dot going across the Sun. Quite an amazing experience. Next one, I'm afraid, is not until 2117. So I don't think many of us are going to be around then, sadly. But anyway, so that's the story of the transit of Venus. It's wonderful beer. So if you do want some of that, get it in the poly pin, get it in quick. So we had a fantastic week last week. VE Day, loads of people got their beers in for that. And it was really great to go around Billericay in particular. Billericay did everyone proud. They had these, loads of the streets had flags up, street parties going on in their front garden, street parties celebrating VE Day. And we really had our busiest week yet since the lockdown. So, hope if you want beer this week, then great, get them in, get your orders in quickly. We'll be delivering tomorrow, tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. And I see someone say, are you delivering in Chelmsford? Yeah, if you get an order in tomorrow, we can deliver to Chelmsford as well. So to Chelmsford, because Rick very often drops them off on the way home on the Thursday night. So get your orders in if you want them for Thursday night. Okay. Okay, and the other thing to remind you of, a couple of other things happening. We had our first Beer Hero awarded last week. We're looking for someone local who's been really a bit of a hero to helping out with other local people. First one nominated by lots of people locally was Colin Sturgeon, and him and his wife did some fantastic work with cat rescue. I visited his house and gave him his beer, and safe social distance, looked into his lounge. His whole lounge is massive cages where they keep all the rescue cats. Absolutely amazing. So we'll do another beer hero this week who will deliver some beer to. So if you know someone who really deserves, you think you've gone the extra pay, it could be something that they're doing especially during the lockdown. It could be one of our key workers. It could be someone who's doing something special for years around. We've got lots of ideas as house people we'd like to award, but we want to hear it from you as well. Okay, now the other thing as well, particularly for your members, if you would like to join us for our virtual pub night, we had our first virtual pub night on VE Day evening. If you've got Zoom on your phones or your iPads and computer, then we had a Zoom call where everyone joined with a beer at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. So we're going to do it again this Friday night. So if you want to join first, you're missing being down at the pub, it's still going to be quite a while, I'm afraid, before the pubs are open. And even when they are open, it's not going to be back to normal for quite a while, I don't think. So, if it's great, we want to still keep in contact with you. We want to see what's happening and have a chat and have a beer together. So if you are interested in that, if you're not yet a member of our members Facebook page, then ask to join that, and then we'll put a Zoom link on that Friday afternoon so you can join us for a beer on Friday night. Okay, so all that's left for me to say is thanks for joining us. Great to see all of you again. Hope to see you again next week, 7 o'clock on Wednesday night again. I think I've got to go and deal with a very noisy dog and see what's happening to that now. But in the meantime, enjoy your beer. Again,